Okay, everybody. You heard me read Lisa's email, and I have her here. Finally get to talk to her sort of in IRL because I've met her on TikTok. So I would say this is as close as IRL we're going to get. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I only bugged you like several times.
I know you did. I know.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
But I think it's really neat because I watch your videos and I think it's fun to like meet somebody. You're kind of like being a voyeur, I guess, when you're watching people's videos, and then you're
yeah,
like,
sure.
oh, they're like a person that can speak and has things going on. uh,
Lots of things going on in some cases. Yes.
Lots of things going on, I bet. Well, the one thing that I love your content is Gen X mostly, right? And a
Yeah.
little witchy thrown in. No, I mean, it's like a mix.
Yeah, it's not a ton of witch content just because I don't feel like that's really my niche, and plus witch talk can just be really, well, witch talk can be a little
Challenging.
much. It's a
Yeah.
little challenging, and
Mhm.
so I don't tend to put myself out there in that way.
Yeah.
It's attraction, not promotion for me.
Yeah. Right. And your stuff is mostly having to do with our generation, Gen X. And
Exactly. Yes.
what is like just so I what's your thoughts? I'm curious. I know this is like everybody calm down. I know it's a paranormal podcast, but I talk a lot about on this podcast about the Gen Wars, you know. What's your thoughts on the Gen Wars?
The Gen Wars, by and large, don't really affect us much, I feel like, we're seldom accused of anything, and we're seldom the ones accusing anybody else of anything. Although I did get into it a couple of days ago with somebody who was saying that, Gen X was the cause of, like, I don't know, some kind of political thing, and I was just like, well, I guess, my dude, but from what I remember, I was politically involved and socially involved at a pretty young age. I mean, Gen X was kind of, I think about, we were coming of age at the time where celebrity philanthropy was ramping up, especially in music. I mean, you were talking about your Live Aid, Band Aid. Do they know it's Christmas? Farm Aid. I ain't gonna play Sun City, and like that kind of
Mhm.
awareness of the world around us through not celebrities, but through music specifically.
Right. Yeah, it's I think that what it's hard to explain, and I have a lot of clients who are, millennials and Gen Z, and they get really shocked when I tell them like cuz I think they don't I think when we were growing up, we were forced to watch like 10 channels. So we knew a
Hmm.
lot about the 50s, we knew a lot about the 60s because we didn't have like selective content. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right. You watched what was on.
you watch what was on. So you were like, "Yeah, I watched that old movie." Or even music, like if your
Hmm.
radio station wasn't coming in clear, then maybe it would flip over or your parents would be listening to something. You didn't have a lot of choice. You had no choice in the matter. So cuz I
Right.
always notice like I'm like, why don't these kids know older stuff? Like it's like I knew 30 years back, I knew 40 years back, but I started to
Hmm.
realize they have they have selective listening. And so I feel like I'll be surprised when they don't know a lot about like their view of the 80s is very clean and not the
Hmm.
brutal stuff we went through. And
Right.
I'll tell the I'll t- it's very glamorized.
Yeah, it's that perception of the Rubik's Cube, everything neon, Saved by the Bell. Yeah, a very whitewashed, clean version, and nothing about the AIDS crisis and Reagan and
Mhm.
just a lot of terrible things that were happening in the 80s.
I mean, not to mention, like, I said this to someone, they were like, "Oh, I wish I was in." I said, "I don't think you would have ever been able to
Mm-mm.
handle it." Like, bullying was we were told was just part of life. It
Yep.
was like, if you got bullied, they were like, "That's just what kids do." If teachers were screaming at you, and even I got my mouth taped, like,
Ugh.
taped.
See, I went to Catholic school where, I was bullied to the point where I had to change schools in the middle of 7th grade because my parents
Mhm.
went to the principal and said, "What can you do about this?" And her take was, "Well, if Lisa's not going to make more of an effort to be normal and fit in, then there's really nothing we can do about it." Like, that was it. Like,
Bingo.
that's
Yeah. I got bullied, and then I had my friends go and approach the bully, but I told them, like, "We're not gonna, like, bully her or harass her, we're just gonna say, 'We're done with you bullying us,'" because the
Mhm.
teachers didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then they pulled me into the office because she was crying, of course, because she didn't like her, getting back what we were like, "We're done with you bullying us, we're not gonna be bullied." I went to a private school as
Mhm.
well, but it was a religious school, but it was Adventist, it wasn't Catholic. And the principal said to me, "Well, you need to help the kids make sure they don't bother her again." I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm just a kid." It was like 6th grade. They're like, "Well, they
Mhm.
listen to you, so, just make sure you leave her alone." And I was like, "Do you understand why we ended up having to tell her to stop bullying us? Because that's how it was." So
Right.
bullying was just like this part of life. Sexism was considered normal and fine,
Mhm. Yeah.
and
Well, it's
all the
this
things.
it's this borrowed nostalgia that every
Yeah,
generation seems to
right.
have for previous generations. Because, when we were little kids in the 70s, it was all that 50s nostalgia.
Yes. Yeah, I was
Like
obsessed with the
Happy
50s.
Days
Right.
and Grease and all of that stuff. And, my parents are in their 80s now, and, they were in high school and college during the 50s. And my mom was just like, "Listen, you couldn't get a credit card, unless you got your husband's permission."
I know, I
Yeah.
tell people all the time. I tell people that all the time. I say, I tell girls all the time, "I don't think you understand, like, I remember my my grandmother, like, didn't know how to do anything. She didn't know how to do anything after her husband died, because she did everything." I mean, I don't think you understand, like, women couldn't, like, we were told we could do anything and be anything, and then
Mhm.
I grew up and I was like, "Well, that was a lie," because I got in the workforce and realized I was treated like "Smile, honey,"
Yeah.
that type of thing, and I was like, and all the women were angry, they said they hated working, and I was like, "So this whole woman war thing was, like, not true? Like, you just threw us to the wolves, and
Mm.
it was just not it was way difficult, and I think every generation has their difficulties, so I
Yeah.
don't know why there's a war, because it's like they
We
all
all
have the good things and the bad things.
Right, sure. Like, okay, you went to school, you walked through snowstorms, uphill both ways, as a kid, and that was really hard for you, but it does not make what people of this generation or another generation, we all have certain, like,
Mhm,
I would I can't imagine being 12 and 13 years old and back then, and having social media and having to deal with the layer of, like, shit, like bullying, but then
and then you
being
go
able to
home
get at you
at
from,
home,
like, you're
right.
not even safe at home.
Mhm.
It's so, yeah, of course it's difficult for them.
Well, I think that what's interesting is like I have, because I started late, so I have a 13-year-old, and
Mhm.
that generation, what's funny is when I see them at junior high, they're all dressed like 90s grunge. They're all in pajamas and
All coming
it's
back,
all
those
coming back.
the tattoo
Yeah.
chokers, the frickin' chokers, the little butterfly clips, and the half shirts, and, like, remember what was that catalog? Delia's. Remember Delia's? The
I don't
Delia's catalog?
no, no.
Oh god, they were the purveyors of, like, that sort of, riot riot girl, but like commodified riot girl clothing. Like, there was riot
Oh,
girl and
okay.
then it got commodified and became like this the Delia's catalog, and that was all that clothing is coming back, and I'm like, oh my god, the long floral dresses and the Doc Martens, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because whenever
yeah.
I wear my Doc Martens, the young girls are like, "Those are cool." They always comment on them. But
Mhm.
I've noticed that they're all the girls are they all like look like they rolled out of bed and they're wearing pajamas and they
Mhm.
literally wear pajama pants to school all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, they're not really into posting because they're very internet savvy. So
Mhm.
they think like posting themselves too much is lame. So they're not posters, they're watchers.
So it's cringe. Is that the term they use? It's cringe.
It's cringe, yeah.
It's
To
cringe.
like
Okay.
it's cringe if you're posting too much. Plus, I think they're pretty savvy in knowing I'm not gonna put myself as much out there
Right.
so you can get to me. So they would like post like a half a picture or a moon, not them like, hey, so
Interesting.
it's
Okay.
interesting because they're very like not as big into recording themselves everywhere and posting it. At least that's what I've observed in some
Hmm.
people I know who have kids and other. But anyway, I could go on and on because
Oh, sure.
I think that the cool thing for our generation is that I wanted the future really bad, but I'm also obsessed with the future. But we were obsessed with the future in the 80s. And
Mhm.
we really wanted technology and we wanted to have a voice. And I think we're a big part of why people have a voice today.
Mhm.
And I feel like our generation has been pretty supportive of progression, I guess is what I'm saying, versus
Oh,
to
yeah.
our boomer parents who yelled at us saying what people hear about today about their being online too much, we heard about TV.
Yeah. TV or, the Walkman, like
The
when
Walkman.
when everyone had a
Like
Walkman,
take those
or
things off. Like they were like, oh, they're just plugged into their Walkman.
yeah, Atari, Nintendo. Yeah. I mean, every generation thinks that, like, the younger generation too uh is too
Missing out on something and
missing
to
out on go outside and get some fresh air. It's
right,
it's it's
right.
that it's that version of go outside and get some fresh air.
We heard that always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're done. Although we should start a Gen X podcast. That would be
I would
fun.
do it. I would
You
do
would
it.
do it?
Sure.
Okay, well
Mm.
let's talk because I would
All
do it.
right.
Hey, you guys heard it here. I'm gonna like hold her to it. I'm gonna
Okay.
email her and be like, when are we doing a Gen X podcast? I don't even know if there is Gen X podcast, but I think
Oh,
we could do
I'm
it.
sure there's a podcast for everything.
True. True.
There is a podcast
This
for
is true.
everything.
This is true. Okay. So, okay, so you had I'm going to go over this story she wrote. It's not really a story. She's kind of talking about the different ghost cats that you have, which I
Mm.
find really interesting because I definitely know that ghost cats I mean pets, animals are the easiest to see. They're like the easiest to kind of
Mhm.
they like pop around and show themselves all the time, so I'm not surprised. I like literally see my cats all the time that have
Mhm.
passed. Um, but so you wrote because so you have your current audience you occupy um you said occupants of a house that has been in the family since the 1940s? So it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
in your family since then?
Well, my husband's family, yeah.
Oh, wow.
My husband's great-grandparents bought this house. It's a two-family house. We live upstairs, and then we have, friends who live downstairs. But, yeah, so, his great-grandparents bought it, and then, his grandparents, his mother, and his aunt lived downstairs. They grew up in the downstairs unit, for a long time, and then Kevin lived here as a teenager for a while. Um, and then when my and then so for the longest time, my mother-in-law was up here in this apartment, and her sister was downstairs. And that's just how it was for years and years until Janny, the aunt, passed away quite suddenly. And we started to notice that Marcia, my mother in law, was having some cognitive issues. And we realized that it was Alzheimer's, and we did have her, diagnosed. And so that's when Kevin and I decided to move into the downstairs apartment and take care of Marcia as long as we were able to, until she had to go into assisted memory unit, and she
Okay.
passed away in 2015. So yeah, long story short, like, somebody from the family has always lived in this house.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
in LA, and I don't think I that is just not something you hear of here.
West Coast is, East Coast, and especially New England, like, you, old ass houses that, just move from family to, generation to generation.
Yeah.
It's maybe not as common as it used to be, but it's how it is here, and it's not especially surprising
Yeah, that's awesome.
when you tell
Oh,
people that
okay.
in New England.
Yeah, here it's like way, you know, that would be unusual for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So for over 13 years you've lived there and you felt the presence of ghost cats when you see a shadow cat for a quick second only to realize there's no actual cat. When you see the shadow cat, what do you see?
It's just a very quick blur. Like, it's just like, I never actually make out, um the face of the cat or the markings of the cat. It's just, an awareness of something sort of at my ankles or around the corner. Um, we've talked about this before. Mediumship is not really my strong suit. It is something that, like, I'm not able to see, very clearly, people or animals who have passed. It's always been a struggle for me to do that because I think my logical, rational mind
Mine gets in the way.
gets too
Yeah.
much in the way, because
Yeah.
I'm a database administrator as my adult grown up job. So it's this constant struggle with the logic and
Mm,
reason and the esoteric for me.
that's totally makes sense. I could see that with you. Okay, so what is this? Is these the names of your cat, Foot and
Yeah, Footfoot,
Mephisto?
Mephisto, yeah, and
Mephisto. Okay,
yeah,
and she often
Footfoot
hangs on.
is
Yeah, go ahead.
Footfoot is still with us.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so Mephisto's the one that hangs out at the top of the stairs.
No, Footfoot hangs out at the top of the stairs, and has done since we moved up here. And because my mother-in-law's cat, Samantha, used to hang out at the top of the stairs.
Okay.
So
Oh.
we think that
Oh.
Footfoot is definitely more sensitive and is constantly, like, running around and yowling, and is seems to be very aware of the other cats in the house,
Or
ghost
maybe there's
cats.
people more.
There's probably people too.
Okay. So, because that was her favorite cat, right? And then Mephisto took ill in July and rapidly declined, and you had to, oh, okay, so it happened pretty fast. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I still grieve
Yeah.
for him. Okay. So you still find whiskers here and there? What is that? Explain what that's about.
He had white whiskers, and occasionally, like, I'll be cleaning something up because, I don't always do the best job vacuuming up and dusting, but like, he died in July, and I'm still finding whiskers here and there.
It's
His
interesting.
his little white whiskers. Yeah, he dropped a
Okay.
lot of whiskers. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't know cats dropped whiskers. I never
Yeah,
found
they
any. I've
do.
never found any with my cats. Maybe I think there's something else. Weird. Okay. And I hear a few minutes later you hear the distinctive chirp. He would greet Foot with this noise. Oh, so you hear? You think you hearing?
I have heard him, and I have felt what I think is him jump up on the bed.
Okay, that's very classic. Very classic pets. Okay, so I'm hoping your instincts around this is correct. As you know, I'm a witch, but mediumship is not my strongest talent. Okay,
It is not.
that's okay. I often feel like I'm willing. I know because you think you're being all logical and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
that the dead are giving me little pokes. Yes. You okay? And I once gave you a reading. Okay, okay. I want to take a look because I have a feeling. I have a feeling there's. It's more than just the cats. Which is why when I read this,
Mhm.
I was like, I think it's just more than that going on. And like keeping in to our theme of that we're both 80s ladies, I'm gonna go with the Stranger Things music. I mean, it's the modern 80s. There we go. It's
Synth.
exactly how it was, everybody.
Yes, that's all you
Exactly.
heard. Everything was synthesizers and neon. That's all it was.
I'm proud to say I never did the neon trend. I did a lot of the trends. I did the bunching up of the socks.
Oh yeah, I had
I
slouchy socks. I had
slouchy
slouchy
socks.
socks.
hmm I had slouchy socks until I was working in a daycare, and this first grader, it was after school care. She's pulled my socks up. This was like early '90s, and she said,
Ah,
no, she said nobody does that anymore. And I was like, oh, I have been checked. Okay. I was only in my 20s. So I was like, I'm
I still
already
wear
out of.
slouchy socks. I love slouchy
Well, they're
socks.
back. They're back. So
Yeah,
you're good. But I guess in the 90s, they were not.
yeah.
Okay. So let me take a look because I feel that I have a sense, which is why I wanted to have you on.
Mhm.
Because I was like, I hear the cats and things, and just so you know, my belief on animals is that they're always very like, it's fine, we died, we're used to it, we're not afraid of death, you guys are afraid of death, we accept death. We see that realm all the time anyway, so when it's time,
Mhm.
when our bodies are like giving us havoc, we just want to let go of them and go. And you guys
Yeah.
seem to have a really hard time with it, which we get, but we don't. And they're very blunt whenever, because I do animal readings all the time,
Mhm.
and they're very blunt about it. So I always have to
Yeah.
prepare people that they're not going to be very like, oh hey, how like
No,
sensitive.
I understand that. Mephisto didn't seem to want to go. But I
Well,
don't know.
they always tell me they hold on for us. This is what
Yeah.
they always say. They say I will try to hold on for you guys, for the person. Like every reading I'll say like, you had a really hard time, so I did my best and I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure you were okay, but I had to
Mhm.
go. But they're
Yeah.
not like, they don't have things they have to resolve. They're, you know what I mean?
Right.
They accept that death is part of the cycle. They just
Yep.
don't have issues with it. Um
Yep.
okay, but I have a feeling there's more to it than just the cats. So
Oh yeah.
let me take a look at your space. So you already told me about the lady, which I feel is right, and I kind of feel like when I look at the space, it's pretty crowded because I see quite a few people. I also keep
Mhm.
seeing this older man that keeps popping up, and
Okay.
the older man is like, um, I want to say he's quite a bit back, meaning
Okay.
like I want to say like he's dressed to me like 40s, 50s.
Okay.
And I want to say he's talking about your father. So he's on
My
your
father.
father's side. Yeah. Oh yeah, cuz remember the house, it doesn't have to be whose house it is. It's the
Okay.
people occupying it that spirits are attached
Okay.
to. And
Okay.
then sometimes it's the house and then sometimes it's the land. But
Okay.
in the case of you two, it's all of the
Yeah.
so that's why it's so many. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like
All
I
right.
see this older man and he's very distinctly in a like a brown suit for some
Okay.
reason. And
All right.
he's talking about your father's side.
Okay.
Um and he's saying that, you know, for him, he's just been kind of concerned about you and making sure everything's okay and something you're going through having to do with your something about your father's side.
My father actually today, well, yeah, we're dealing with my elderly parents. They're down in Florida. We're trying to get them back up here.
Okay.
And my father actually had to go into the ER a couple of hours ago to have a blood
Okay.
transfusion.
Oh, really? I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah,
hmm
so he's like he's on it. The woman that he's on it, like he's saying everything's okay for now. It will be
hmm
bumpy, but it's okay for now. Like things will stabilize. He's not giving me any vision of like,
yeah,
yeah, he's not giving it like a big, it's more like just so you know you're not alone.
yeah.
Um and then there's like a woman who kind of pushes him out of the way and steps in front of him.
Okay,
She, I feel, is connected to him. So
okay,
I think this is your dad's dad, obviously, and the woman might be your dad's mom.
okay.
Um, but she's kind of round, and she's saying, um, yeah, she's saying that did she die young?
No, no. Well, I mean, I had my paternal grandparents until I was like in my early 20s.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah, Will, my grandfather died first, and then about a year and change later, my grandmother passed.
was she like in her 70s?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say
yeah,
like yeah, 70, late 70s, early 80s.
okay. The only reason why I felt like she died young is because she felt like she didn't like she feels very attached to your father. You know, like when a mom can be overbearing a little bit.
Okay.
Um, that type of mother. But I feel like her presence is more her bumping in is just more like we're on it. Like I just want her to know we're
Mhm.
on it. And then the woman, I kind of feel like I'm getting like I feel like I'm going ping ponging around because then the woman at the top of the stairs is definitely having to do with the cat. But it's
Mhm.
funny because when I see her, it's like she just stands there. She's just still.
Mhm.
Usually people have a lot to say, and her thing is it's all done on purpose. Like she wants you to know the cat is looking at her.
Mhm.
She says something like she's tried to get your attention a few times. She's messed with the lights a few times. She's tried to like, you know, wake you up in the middle of the night. She says that you're wrong, that you do have those senses. You may not do like what I'm doing, but
Mhm.
you are very aware of them and you just brush it off. She's funny. She's like, she just brushes it off like brushing,
Mhm.
you know, off her shoulder and just doesn't really give it merit, but she
Okay.
does feel us, I can tell. Her, she's talking more about your husband. Did you say she
Okay.
was, connected to your husband, this lady?
Um yeah, well, I mean, my mother-in-law and her cat, were up here in this apartment. So that may be it.
Okay. Um, so she's saying that, well, which is the white cat? I just saw like a white fluffy cat. I think a white cat. Could be
A
white and
white cat.
gray. grayish white,
Hmm.
fluffy cat. She's holding it like a grayish white
Okay.
cat. Um,
Samantha was a big fluffy cat with a big white fluffy belly, but she was also kind of calico.
oh, okay. Well, maybe I'm just seeing the white part because I just
Yeah.
know that it was fluffy.
Yeah.
And she's saying that this lady's just kind of an overwatch of everything. It's not just like what you're going through with your parents. She's
Okay.
an overwatch of everything going on in the house. She says everything's going to lighten up. Um, she says that she really likes you because you have a. She goes, I really like her because she's really smart. She has a lot of depth, but a lot of the time she doesn't let herself just have a, you know, get like have a good time, like just give herself a break or
Mm-hmm.
something. But I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of torn because this woman feels like she really knows you, and she's saying something like your kind of witchy ways is not, other people in your family were similar. That's kind of how she's making it sound. Other
Okay.
women, other women in your family, in your
Mm-hmm.
ancestors,
Yeah.
kind of did similar things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
It
not
makes
sure if
sense.
this is, um,
Connected to Kevin or me.
or if I'm hearing two people at once, because you have a lot of people. And I'm not like, and since I kind of opened the door and I didn't like, normally I'm like, okay, I'm only going to focus on this, but on the podcast, I don't do that. In my personal readings, I do, but on my podcast, I'm like opening the door and I'm like, whoa, there's a lot. And the cats are I just saw like a darker cat kind of just staring at me with green, I
Mm-hmm.
think, eyes. The only reason why I say that is because it just stared at me. So I feel like what's happening in your home is there's what's the term? What is it? What do I want to say?
Hodgepodge.
Thank you. Menopause brain. Yay. Hodgepodge. No one told us about that. A hodgepodge of different like human and animals, but it all seems to be the trippy part is that it's like it feels really cool. It kind of feels like it's creating this otherworldly space there, and all I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
from all of them is like she's very magical. She needs to get back into her creative side. She needs to get back, and we're trying to wake that up in her.
Okay.
So the cats are like they're just like that, like the dark cat that with the green eyes staring at me is saying thank you. And he keeps pointing to his belly though, saying
That's
something that
Mephisto. That's
okay,
Mephisto. He loved having his belly rubbed.
okay. So
Loved it.
he's saying that I'm always watching and it's very easy to get your attention. He also does things like tries to touch you with it like on your neck, on your foot. You'll see him
Yep.
a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
And he says you were very cool. You were like you almost could hear him. He felt like you telepathically connected with him.
Yeah.
And he says you treated me like equal, which I appreciated. And he says, and my job with you was done. I needed to get you on track. Um, believing in yourself, being strong, and then I just couldn't really hang on anymore. And so he says, I'm sorry, I know that was difficult, but I'll be sending another similar to him to
Okay.
take you to the next stage. Because animals always tell me that they are here to take us to different stages in our life to kind of like
Yeah.
help guide us, like, get your butt over here, get your butt over here. But he's
Yep.
very funny because he's very magical feeling, but he's very strong. Like I feel like he's like an alpha male. I don't
It's
know.
funny. He was a very strong. He was kind of a bruiser, but we always refer to him as kind of a butt boy because Foot, who just walked by, she's the alpha. Like she was,
Okay.
she's the cat in charge, and he just kind of, capitulated to whatever she wanted. But he was I mean, he he could bulldoze into you. He was a strong
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah, I feel like when you were saying that, he was saying, he's like he didn't feel that way. It was more like, just like humans find a way to get around each other. That's
Yeah.
just how he did. But he feels pretty strong. Yeah, so he says he's very happy with, he says he's obviously in the space that he's familiar with, and he just wanted to thank you because you were very more than fair to him. You treated him very fairly, and that's very rare with humans. Like you didn't talk down to him, you
No.
know. And so I feel like there's a whole thing going on, and it looks like they're
Yeah.
all kind of trying to push you to do something.
Okay.
What's that about?
I well, I mean, I play in two bands. I don't know, like, um,
Because I
maybe
kept
about
hearing writing,
yeah,
writing something. Yeah.
yeah. Writing was what I originally did before I got more into music and performing.
Uh-huh. What's your band so everybody can know about it?
Okay, well, I'm in a B-52's tribute band here
Okay.
in the Boston area. We're called Bikini Whale. You can find us on Facebook.
That's
And
a
then
cool. That's definitely that is definitely a band name. That's a cool name.
yeah, we took it from the line in Rock Lobster where they say, "Here comes a bikini whale."
Okay.
So it's Bikini Whale. And then I'm in an original band that does, sort of more indie rock, and we're called the Zip Ups. And we just finished recording. We're going to be mixing pretty soon, and we'll have music available to listen to soon.
And what do you do in the band?
In the Zip Ups, I play the drums, so drums, percussion, singing, and then
Oh, sweet.
yeah, in Bikini Whale, I do like all the Cindy Wilson stuff. I play bongos and
Okay.
sing, and yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, thank you for finally coming on. I feel like I wanted to also just real quick before we go, kind of like I know we mentioned slightly like the witchy part. So what's your witchy part? How did you get into your witchy part? Because we I always try to tell people, like they're like, how was it? I go, when I first started seeing things in like 1991, it was not like accepted, and it was definitely
Hmm.
not accepted in the 80s to talk about these things. So how
Right.
did you ended up, you know, getting into that part of yourself?
I mean, I've always been very interested in esoterica and sort of, the spookier, shadowy side of things, like ever since I was a kid. And so, I think I always had it in me, but never really studied formally until several years ago, when I found myself doing volunteer work in Salem, Massachusetts,
Oh,
which,
nice.
which city, USA.
Yeah.
Um, and that led me to studying with my now teacher, Lori Cabot, who is the official Witch of Salem. She just turned 91. She just turned 91.
Wow.
91? Yeah, 91. She's the Witch of Salem. She has I'm a second degree priestess in the Cabot tradition.
So can you explain to people who aren't familiar what a second degree priestess mean and the Cabot could
Yeah, so
sorry,
The Cabot tradition is,
tradition. Couldn't
yeah,
say the word. What's
yeah,
wrong with my
she
brain?
you can find all of Lori Cabot has a ton of books out on it. But she refers to witchcraft as both a science and an art. So there's the science to witchcraft,
Love
but there's
that.
also an art of witchcraft. She's very much in a Welsh Celtic tradition.
Hmm.
Um, so it's how do I explain this? Yeah, I mean, she originally studied with it. Her teacher was originally Welsh, in the Welsh path, and she's got an amazing life too. She was like an exotic dancer in the 50s, and realized. that she was a witch and decided that she was going to claim that part of herself and began dressing in all black and presenting as a witch and found herself living in Salem. She never had any interest in moving to Salem, and it just sort of happened for her. And she opened the first witchcraft shop in the United
Wow.
States in
What?
Salem. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was just way ahead of the curve. And
Way
so
ahead.
when you think of all of these shops that you can go to now,
Mhm.
Lori was sort of the imprimatur of that. And
That's amazing.
yeah, so second degree means that I've sort of completed certain levels of training and understanding without being really formally initiated as a high priestess of the
Right, but a
tradition.
lot of people don't know what high priestess means, so why don't you explain that?
Okay, my understanding was when I completed my first the first degree as a first degree, I could call myself a Cabot witch. The second degree is, the a priestess, meaning that I can be more involved in circles and in being more part of what happens at the altar during rituals.
Right.
Yeah,
Basically,
so
like,
it's
leading the rituals and things like
right,
that.
right. I can't lead a ritual, but I can be part of a ritual,
Are you
like
in a
in
coven?
a circle. Um, I guess you could call the Cabot tradition a coven.
Mhm.
We do meet regularly for rituals, especially around the right now with Ostara coming up. There was an Ostara ritual, and we do actually Cabots actually are very involved in social and political. Not so much political,
Okay.
but we're very much into social justice, and we do the Pride Parade. We have a lot
Mhm.
of LGBTQ plus witches in the Cabot tradition.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and we're very glamorous.
very glamorous. Oh, I like
We're
that.
very
Gla
glamorous witches. We're very sparkly
Ooh,
witches.
I like that. I like the
Yeah.
sparkly, which okay. And so you started studying with her, but, like, you just kinda got drawn to it and kinda just started going from there? Do you know how old you
Yeah, I
were?
decided to. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that I really started feeling what I refer to as sort of like I've always considered myself sort of a bog or a forest witch. I'm very earthy. I'm very
Yeah,
drawn to like
yeah.
forests, the
I would say that
ocean.
like a I always call that like a earthy type of grounded type of witch, because
Yeah,
even your
I'm
energy is very grounded.
yeah, I'm a Virgo. With a yeah, I wouldn't say I don't know. Sometimes I'm a Virgo with a Cancer ascendant and a Pisces moon. So like I'm really kind of all over the place. But the Virgo just definitely keeps me
Grounded.
very aware of where my feet are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm a Leo with the Pisces moon and a Gemini rising.
Okay.
Um, but I'm not grounded at all. I had to learn to be grounded. I had to learn.
It's yeah.
I preach it so to speak. Like I not preach. I tell people being grounded is very, very important, but it wasn't came natural for me.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I am very, very grounded. In other ways, I think I also had to learn a lot of that. I'm also sober. I've been sober 21 years.
Oh,
Um,
great.
so
That's
I had to
congratulations.
learn a lot. Thank you. I had to learn a lot about not being so much in my head and catastrophizing things and living in
Right.
worst case scenario land, which is kind of where I will fly off into, and that may be what some of the spirits around me are trying to communicate.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
like
yeah. They'll do that because I even today I was like thinking something like I can hear them. They're like, we told you it will be fine.
Mhm.
We got it." And I'm like, "All right." And then it did
Yeah.
work out, the thing I was worried about. But I tend to kind of live in the other realms, so that's why I had to learn to be grounded.
Mhm.
Um, but what's your favorite on closing? What's your favorite part about the whole paranormal world or the witchy world, or like, like I always try to give everybody a positive view, because the paranormal world is always just fear, 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 and
Yeah.
the witchy world is very stereotyped. And I feel like you come from a real place, and so like just leaving people like, listen, if you're going to go into this world, this is a world you're peeking into, this is what you feel it benefits, the best.
Yeah, I think so many of us are brought up with this idea that anything that is outside of what we can physically see or hear, or anything that's not, I don't want to bash anybody's religion, obviously, because religion has its purpose and has its place.
Mhm.
But I do think that and particularly in the United States and with the way the political climate and such, there's this idea that if it's not this, then it's evil. If it's not of God, then it's evil, and it's wrong. And it's not. And if anything, the path that I've been on, and meeting people like you, and learning more about these other realms, is that it's not scary. It's not bad. And it's learning to listen to what um listen to what the other realm has to say to you. I'm not and I'm not the greatest at hearing that, but obviously, but
But you but you do listen
it's
to the earth, and the earth
yeah.
it is kind of a magical realm too,
Oh, it
or you
absolutely is.
you like, I feel like the fae, and the gnomes,
Mhm.
and all those things are more earth. That's why I've learned those realms through earthy people, like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
forest and all that.
yeah.
That's another way to enter the magical realm to me.
Yeah, the Fae, also known as the good neighbors. You refer to them as the good neighbors. They are the good neighbors. You don't want to get on their bad side.
Oh, no, you did not.
Because
Mhm.
they are pranksters. But yeah, it's all magic is everywhere, and everybody has the potential, and has some magical ability within them. Everybody possesses it, and that is something that I definitely learned, studying more closely with Laurie Cabot. Like that I had things within myself that I had no idea I had. And I think
Mhm.
everybody has that, and be open to it, and open your heart to it. Nothing gets into a closed fist.
Yeah.
Keep it, yeah, keep it open, keep the channels open. And you'll be amazed at how much more connected you will feel to other people, the earth,
Yeah. Awesome.
even in this technological
Yeah.
morass that we're in.
I love the tech. I think the tech helps. Look, we wouldn't
Oh, the
be
tech
talking right
definitely
now.
helps.
It does help,
Yeah,
but I think
absolutely.
that's like a great place to end. This is why I always tell people, be open to the magic. Like, let yourself,
Mhm.
it's around you. You don't have to look so far. We're born
Mhm.
with it. Just remember, you know. Thank you
Mhm.
for coming on. This was awesome. Thanks for
Thank you.
finally coming on my podcast. And maybe you guys listen soon for a different type of podcast. Uh, as
Sure.
long as we don't sound like old ladies going like back then. But and then tell people where they could follow you if you want them to.
Sure. I mean, I'm on TikTok. What is my TikTok? I think it's Lisa McC 70, LISAMCC 70. I'm on Instagram, and you can find my bands on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Oh,
Bikini Whale, Bikini Kill, totally different band. Bikini Whale and the Zip Ups, and Bikini Kill is also a great band, but that's not the band that
that's
I'm
not
in.
her band though.
That's
Okay.
not my band. No.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on. All right.